I own nothing but the opinions and vocals expressed herein. Castlevania is property of Konami. This series produced by Frederator Studios, Powerhouse Animation Studios, Shankar Animation, Project 51 Productions, Moi Film. Please support the official release. Daybreak of the Siege. Last time we saw the darkest, now we see the dawn. How appropriate, since Trevor and Sypha have leapt towards the scene. More Viking vamps who remind me of Godbrand. How did Isaac ambush and finish him off so efficiently? The sliding power scale here isn't as terrible as, say, in Gundam Wing, but it's definitely noticeable. We see Greta kill 5 basic enemy creatures, not bad for an ordinary human with improvised weapons. And back to the theme of moving on from the past. When something scary runs through the kitchen, it destroys the dolls Alucard kept for company in the prior season. Speaking of whom, all the chipping and grinding has finally begun to take its toll on him, and things start getting real hairy when the mirror opens behind him and the, presumably also wearied, cavalry arrives on the scene. And the main score swells as suddenly this becomes so much more efficient. Good to get the band back together. Suddenly restores all of their stamina. It really is nice to see Trevor getting good use out of that Holy Cross. Once again, there's a lot more blood than I can show here, so I can only sparingly detail the actual fight. We saw Ratko sprout wings to attack in the prior episode, but I think this is the first we've seen of Alucard's wings. The big kaiju thing isn't dead yet, but with the teamwork that took down Dracula, it soon will be. The trio split up and killed the grunts in spectacle. I hadn't mentioned it before, but Sypha is adding lightning to her list of tools. Lightning generates ice, so that makes sense. I mentioned the Viking vamps before, but it looks like these new ones can teleport. Dragon drags in the vessel for 2 souls. Varney is somehow able to open the barrier without any tools on hand. And his prattle about Saint-Germain segues into the big reveal that he was the alchemist all along. Malcolm McDowell seems made for this role. With his true form comes a true motive. I've highlighted some of Saint-Germain's scary faces, but here's a face where he's the one scared, terrified even. Death goes back to the 8-bit era, once a loyal servant to Dracula, in the 3rd game, where the first 2 seasons got most of their story. But here, he seeks only power and sustenance for himself. What kind of world will Saint-Germain bring his significant other into? With Death holding on to his spine, can he expect success? Should Death be expected to let him have what he wants? Another brief peek into hell, but unlike the Season 3 climax, they're about to move back into the world of the living. And that's the last of the mooks. Now's the time for introductions, account for losses, and deal with the madman. Or they could deal instead with some mini-bosses on the melted gears of the castle transport. As Death restores the barrier, Trevor explains what they're dealing with. And the tragic couple is pulled through the corridor. So yeah, the body they're being forced to possess is naked, and I can't show much of this scene either. I don't think this show is very YouTube friendly. Death seems in awe of the sight before him, Alucard in horror, Belmont in whip mode. And like that, they're finally through. And now you ask, what have I done? The battle ends quickly in a blast that destroys the room and splits the humans. And the overpowered cross is finally bested. A blade lodged in Saint Germain's chest. And the nameless, voiceless woman from episode 4 turns her back on him, while death eats the key, holding the remaining souls, and becomes Super Death. This episode is titled The Endings. They are still separated, and Alucard might not be able to bridge that distance. Meanwhile, Trevor has a bone to pick with Death. In a line that might look, it seems subtly like it might be a jab at major creative studios, Trevor calls him a thing that only knows how to hide and feed, which might explain a lot of the Varney persona. One of the many clues saturated in this season was Ratko telling Varney, "I'm not sure what you are." Also, that thing where he's trying to find a nice big word to describe what's happening. Yeah, I'm not sure how much that was a ploy. Speaking of Death and what we've seen before, by this point it's redundantly clear that Death is the figure we saw at the end of the Season 4 trailer. I've been told that in the tarot, the Death card symbolizes change and catalyst, and boy howdy, has he put that in motion this season. By the way, since they both light Death's body up, this fight should come with a seizure warning. So after the floor has been sliced so much, it breaks physics like an H.P. Lovecraft story. Trevor lights the whole chain this time, suckers Death, and finally assembles his knife that he's been assembling the whole season. I just got this still because it looks so cool. Some of the old animation shortcuts have been present in this final battle, but this has been emotionally moving and spectacular between the music, the dialogue, the setup, the Saint Germain still having some life left in him and some flooring beneath him. So what would you say, Mr. McDowell? Was this your favorite Death scene? Now say it with me, class. Nobody could have survived that. Next episode is all about follow-up. Let me know what you thought in the comments. And even if you critique any mistakes I made, it's one more sign people are actually watching. So I'll take it. Anyway, we'll wrap this up next time. Only enough time to say that, in spite of having only one eye, one working arm, and going into 4 fights already exhausted, Trevor can still jump falling platforms like Legolas in the Hobbit movies. Sure.